The phone rang. 8:47 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I was still in my bathrobe, standing in the kitchen, waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. 3 days, just 3 days since I'd buried my husband. 38 years of marriage, and I could barely sleep 2 hours at a time. I was running on caffeine and casseroles from the neighbors. The phone rang, and I almost didn't answer it, you know? So many calls, people offering condolences, distant relatives wanting to know about the will, and those telemarketers who don't know or don't care that you just became a widow. But something made me pick it up. Mrs. Williams? Barbara Williams? Speaking. This is Christine Holloway from Mutual Life Insurance about your husband's policy. First, I want to express my condolences for your loss. Thank you. I was already tired of these conversations. I'm calling because we've received 2 claims on the policy, and we need to verify some information before we can proceed with payment. 2? What do you mean, 2 claims? I only filed 1. Silence. The kind of silence where you know something bad is coming. Mrs. Williams. The other claim was filed by another Mrs. Williams, Patricia Williams. She's listed as the spouse on a separate policy your husband held with us. I couldn't speak. Like, literally. The words wouldn't come out. Another Mrs. Williams, another spouse, another policy. Mrs. Williams, are you still there? There must be some mistake. My husband only had 1 policy. With me, I'm his wife. Ma'am, I understand this must be confusing, but according to our records, your husband held 2 separate life insurance policies, one listing you as the beneficiary, and one listing a Patricia Williams at an address in Dayton, Ohio. Dayton. 45 minutes away. 45 minutes from our house in Springfield. From the life we'd built together. From everything I thought I knew. I need you to send me copies of both policies, everything you have. Can you do that? Yes, I can do that. I'll need to verify your identity first, of course, but my identity? I laughed. It came out wrong, kind of hysterical. My identity is Barbara Williams. Barbara Williams for 38 years. I married Robert Williams on June 14, 1986, at First Baptist Church in Springfield, Ohio. We have 2 children, Robert Jr. and Michelle. I have a marriage certificate, tax returns, photos, 38 years of memories. Is that enough identity for you? Mrs. Williams, I understand you're upset. Upset? You're telling me my husband of 38 years had another wife, another family, another whole life that I knew nothing about. I'm not saying anything, ma'am. I'm just telling you what our records show. I'll send you the documents, and I think you might want to speak with a lawyer. She hung up. I just stood there, in my kitchen, in my bathrobe, holding the phone, listening to that dial tone, beep, beep, beep. 45 minutes. Dayton was 45 minutes away. Let me back up, way back. Because if you're going to understand how I ended up here, a 63-year-old widow finding out her entire marriage was a lie, you need to know everything. How I met Robert, how I fell in love with him, how I built a life with a man who apparently had another life entirely. My name is Barbara Williams, or at least, I thought I was the only one. I was 24 years old when I met Robert Williams, and I was absolutely convinced I was going to die alone. I know. Sounds dramatic, right? 24 isn't old, but this was 1985. Springfield, Ohio. If you weren't married by 25, people started looking at you funny. My mother had been married at 19, My older sister got engaged at 21. All my friends from high school had babies by then, showed up to church with strollers, with husbands holding their hands during the service. And me? 24, single, living in a studio apartment above a hair salon, working as a secretary at a manufacturing company. My mother called every Sunday. "Barbara, you're not getting any younger." My sister kept trying to set me up with her husband's friends, guys with, Jesus, sweaty palms, bad breath, who talked about themselves for 2 hours and then seemed confused when I didn't want a second date. I'd started to accept it, like, maybe marriage wasn't for me. Maybe I'd be that spinster aunt who shows up at holiday dinners alone, the one everyone feels sorry for but doesn't quite know how to include. I was making my peace with it. And then Robert walked into my office, October 15th, 1985. I remember because it was the day after my sister's birthday. I'd drunk too much wine at her party, had a headache, was in a bad mood, had zero patience for whatever the day was going to throw at me. Robert Williams was there to meet with Mr. Hendricks, the owner of the company, some kind of sales call, sold equipment to manufacturers. I was supposed to, I don't know, check him in, offer him coffee, make sure he had everything he needed. Tall. That's the first thing I noticed. Not movie star tall, but tall enough that I had to look up to meet his eyes. And I'm 5'7". I'm not a short woman. Dark hair, just starting to go gray at the temples. Brown eyes with little crinkles at the corners, like he smiled a lot. And this way of standing, comfortable in his own skin, confident but not arrogant, present. "I'm here to see George Hendricks, 9 o'clock appointment, Robert Williams." "Of course, let me just check." I pretended to look at the appointment book even though I already knew he was expected. I needed a second to pull myself together. There was something about this man that knocked me off balance, and I didn't like feeling off balance. "Mr. Hendricks will be with you in a few minutes. Can I get you some coffee?" "That would be great. Black, please." I went to get his coffee. And when I came back, he was looking at the photos on the wall, pictures of the company's products, group shots of employees at company picnics, that kind of thing. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. 3 years. "You like it?" Nobody had ever asked me that before. Not customers, not vendors, not even Mr. Hendricks himself. I was a secretary. I was furniture with typing skills. "It pays the bills," I said. Safe answer. He smiled. "That's not what I asked." I felt my face get warm. "I like the people. The work is work." "What would you rather be doing?" Now I really didn't know what to say. Nobody asked questions like this, especially not salesmen who were just waiting for their meeting. "I used to want to be a teacher," I heard myself say. "When I was a kid, I'd line up my stuffed animals and teach them lessons, made little worksheets for them and everything. Why was I telling this stranger my life story? What was wrong with me? Why didn't you pursue it?" Life got in the way. My dad got sick when I was in high school, had to help at home, couldn't go away to college. By the time he passed, I was already working, and it seemed too late to start over. It's never too late. My mother went back to school when she was 45, got her nursing degree, worked at the hospital until she was 70. That's actually really inspiring." He smiled again. And I noticed. When he smiled, his whole face changed, lit up from the inside. "Robert Williams?" Mr. Hendricks' voice came from his office doorway. "Come on back." Robert picked up his briefcase, then he paused, turned back to me. "I didn't catch your name." "Barbara. Barbara Jennings." "It was nice to meet you, Barbara Jennings. Maybe I'll see you again next time I'm in the area." And then he was gone. Into Mr. Hendricks' office. I just sat at my desk, staring at my typewriter, wondering what the hell just happened. He came back 3 weeks later, same time, same sales call. But this time, he brought me a coffee from the bakery down the street. Black, he said, since that's how you made mine. The week after that, he brought me a donut, chocolate glazed. Somehow, he'd found out that was my favorite. The week after that, he asked me to dinner. I should have said no. I knew almost nothing about this man. He was older than me, 32 to my 24, and he traveled for work, which meant he could have been anyone, could have had any kind of life I didn't know about. My mother would have told me to be careful. My sister would have told me he was probably married. I said yes. We went to a little Italian place outside of town, somewhere nobody would see us and start rumors. He ordered a bottle of wine, and we talked for 4 hours. 4 hours. He told me about his life, growing up in Columbus, studying business at Ohio State, falling into sales because he was good at talking to people and couldn't stand being stuck in an office all day. I like the freedom, he said, the road, the variety. Every day is different. Don't you get lonely? He looked at me for a long moment. Sometimes, but I'd rather be lonely traveling than trapped in one place. Trapped? That's how you see it? I see it as, I don't know. My parents had this marriage where my dad went to the same job every day for 40 years. Came home at 5:30, ate dinner, watched TV, went to bed, did it all again the next day. He was miserable. My mother was miserable. They stayed together because that's what you did, but there was no life in it. I promised myself I wouldn't live like that. So you travel instead. I stay in motion, keep things interesting. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe I've been running from the wrong things. Maybe stability doesn't have to mean stagnation. Maybe the right person could make staying put feel like an adventure. I should have seen it then. Should have recognized the warning signs. A man who couldn't stand being trapped. Who valued freedom above everything. Who was 32 years old and had never been married despite being handsome and charming and successful. Normal people found ways to balance stability and excitement. Normal people didn't talk about their parents' marriage like it was a prison sentence. But I was 24 years old, I was lonely, and he was looking at me like I was the most interesting person in the world. We dated for 6 months. Well, dated might be a strong word. He was on the road most of the time, so we saw each other maybe twice a month. He'd come through Springfield on his sales route, take me to dinner, stay at the motel on Route 40, leave the next morning. Between visits, he'd call me every few days, long conversations, sometimes lasting hours, talking about everything and nothing. I fell in love with him. Of course I did. He was charming, attentive, made me feel special. He remembered things I told him, my favorite flowers, my childhood dreams, the name of my cat. He sent me postcards from his travels. He told me I was beautiful. Looking back, I can see how little I actually knew about him. He talked a lot, but the words were smoke. I knew his parents were dead. I knew he'd lived in Columbus and then moved around a lot for work. I knew he had a sister somewhere, but they weren't close. Everything else was vague, impressionistic, like a painting where you could see the overall shape but not the details. 6 months into our relationship, he proposed. He did it at the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. Got down on one knee right there in the middle of the dining room, with a ring he said had belonged to his grandmother. It wasn't a big diamond. He apologized for that, said he'd get me a bigger one someday when business was better. But it sparkled in the candlelight, and I said yes before he even finished asking the question. My mother was thrilled, finally. Her hopeless daughter was getting married. My sister was suspicious at first. "You've only known him 6 months, Barbara, and he's never even met the family." But she came around when she actually met Robert, when he turned his charm on her husband, made everyone feel like they were the most important people in the room. We got married on June 14th, 1986, small ceremony at First Baptist Church, reception at the VFW Hall, honeymoon in Gatlinburg because it was all we could afford. Robert wore a suit he borrowed from my brother-in-law. I wore my mother's wedding dress, let out at the seams because I was bigger than she'd been. It was the happiest day of my life. We moved into a little house on Oak Street, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a yard just big enough for a garden. Robert was still traveling for work, 3, sometimes 4 days a week. But when he was home, he was present, really present. He fixed things around the house, cooked dinner, rubbed my feet at the end of a long day. "I know it's hard," he'd say, "me being gone so much, but I'm working on building something, getting more territory, more clients. Someday I won't have to travel as much. We'll have everything we need." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. The insurance company sent the documents 3 days later, 2 thick envelopes. I spread them out on my kitchen table and tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Policy number 1. Taken out in 1987, the year after we were married. Beneficiary: Barbara Williams. Spouse: death benefit, $500,000. Policy number 2, taken out in 1990, a year after he married Patricia. Beneficiary: Patricia Williams. Spouse: death benefit, $750,000. He'd given her a bigger policy. That hurt more than I expected it to, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the applications. On my policy, in the section asking about dependents, Robert had listed me and Bobby, just the 2 of us, because Michelle wasn't born yet. On Patricia's policy, in the same section, he'd listed her and their son David. And in the space for other dependents, he'd written none. He'd erased me, erased my children. On paper, we didn't exist. I called Michelle, told her what I'd found. "There's gotta be more," she said. "More documents, more lies, more evidence of what he was doing. We need to find everything." "How?" "Start with the things you do have access to. His office at home, his files, his computer, anything he left behind." Robert had a small office in our house, a converted bedroom where he kept his papers, made his calls, did whatever work he did at home. I'd rarely gone in there. It was his space. I respected his privacy. Privacy. What a joke that seems now. I went into the office, started opening drawers. The first thing I found was a lockbox, heavy metal, hidden in the back of the bottom drawer of his desk. I didn't have the combination, but I found a hammer in the garage, and I beat that lockbox until it opened. Inside, cash, bundles of it, 50s and 100s, wrapped in rubber bands. I counted it, hands shaking, $47,000. $47,000 in cash, hidden in my husband's desk. What was he saving for? An emergency exit? A third family? Or just keeping his options open, the way he'd always kept his options open? There were other things in the lockbox, too. A passport I'd never seen, not his regular passport. The one we'd gotten together for that trip to Canada we never took. This one was different. Same photo, different name, Robert Mitchell. He had a fake identity, a whole other name, ready and waiting, and at the very bottom of the box, a photograph, a family portrait. Patricia, Robert, 2 children, teenagers in the picture, probably taken 10 or 15 years ago. They were all smiling. They looked happy. They looked like a real family. On the back of the photo, in Robert's handwriting, "My real family. I put the photo down, went to the bathroom, threw up. The next day, I started going through the mail, really going through it, the way I hadn't before. Robert had always handled the finances, paid the bills, managed the accounts. I'd trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. Among the usual junk, credit card offers, political flyers, coupons for restaurants we'd never go to, I found a credit card statement. But it wasn't for any card I recognized. It was from a bank I'd never heard of, and it was addressed to Robert Williams at a P.O. box in Dayton. He must have forgotten to update his mailing address. Or maybe he was getting sloppy. After 35 years of juggling two lives, I opened it. The charges told a story I didn't want to read. Flowers. Delivered to an address in Dayton. $89.99. Jewelry store. Dayton. $1,247. Restaurant. Dayton. 15687. Hotel Columbus. $289. Hotel in Columbus. Why would he need a hotel in Columbus when he was supposedly coming home to me? I kept reading. More charges, more restaurants, more hotels, and then something that made my heart stop. Marriage counseling, $200, paid to a therapist in Dayton. He'd been in marriage counseling with Patricia, working on their relationship, trying to be a better husband. To her, not to me. All those times I'd asked him if we should see someone. After Bobby left for college, when I felt like we were drifting apart, when the silence in the house got too loud, he'd said no, said we didn't need a stranger telling us how to be married, said we were fine. But he was seeing a counselor with his other wife, investing in that relationship, trying to save it. I called Patricia. Did you know about the counseling? She was quiet for a moment. Yes. We started going about 5 years ago. Robert said he wanted to be more present, more committed. He said he felt like he'd been running from something his whole life, and he wanted to stop. Running from something. Running from me. From our life. From the family he'd made when he was too young to know what he was doing. Did it help? I asked. I thought it did. He was home more attentive, more there. I thought we were building something. He was home more because he was with me less. That's where all those extra work trips had gone. Not to clients, but to a therapist in Dayton, working on his other marriage. I'm sorry, Patricia said. I didn't know. I know. Neither did I. Michelle had been doing her own investigation. She'd called the bank, the one where Robert and I had our joint accounts, asked for statements going back as far as they could provide. What did you find? She handed me a stack of papers. Highlighted in yellow were dozens of transfers, regular, monthly transfers, $3,000 here, $2,500 there, $4,000 the month before that. Where was this money going? To another account, one that's not in your name. I had to dig, but I found it. She pulled out another piece of paper. He had a separate account at a different bank, same name, different institution, and that account was linked to another account, in Patricia's name. He'd been funneling money to his other family for years, decades. How much? Michelle did the math. Based on what I can see, at least $700,000 over the past 20 years, probably more. $700,000. Money that should have been ours, our vacation fund, our retirement savings, our security, sent to someone else. Mom, Michelle said carefully, there's something else. What? The house in Dayton. I looked up the property records. It's worth about $450. And it's paid off. No mortgage. Our house. The house on Oak Street. The one we'd lived in for 38 years. Still had a mortgage. We'd refinanced twice to pay for the kids' college, to fix the roof, to get by during the years when Robert's commissions were low. He'd paid off her house and kept us in debt. 6 months after the funeral, we held a family meeting, all of us. Bobby flew in from Chicago. Michelle drove down from Columbus. David and Rachel came from Dayton. Patricia was there, and me. We met at a restaurant, neutral ground, a private room in the back of an Italian place that none of us had ever been to. Nobody wanted to meet at someone's home. Nobody wanted that much intimacy. It was strange, sitting across the table from Robert's other children. David looked so much like Bobby, it was uncanny. Same build, same coloring, same way of holding himself. They could have been twins, born 2 years apart to different mothers. Rachel looked like Patricia, blonde, petite, with a nervous energy that reminded me of her mother. Bobby spoke first. "So, we're all here." "We're all here," David agreed. "This is weird. This is beyond weird. This is insane." They looked at each other for a moment, and then, suddenly, they both started laughing. Not happy laughter, broken laughter. The kind that comes when you don't know what else to do. "Our dad was something else," Bobby said. "He certainly was." The ice was broken. We talked for 3 hours. We shared stories about Robert, the good ones and the bad ones, the times he'd been a great father and the times he'd disappointed us, the advice he'd given, the lies he'd told, the ways he'd shaped our lives without us ever knowing the whole truth. David talked about learning to ride a bike. Robert had spent a whole weekend teaching him, running alongside, refusing to give up until David could balance on his own. "I thought he was the most patient man in the world," David said. "Turns out he just had 2 weekends worth of patience. One for me, one for you," he nodded at Bobby. Bobby talked about his graduation from Ohio State. Robert had been there, beaming, bragging to anyone who would listen about his son, the computer scientist. "He told everyone I was going to change the world. I believed him. I believed everything he said." Michelle talked about her wedding, Robert walking her down the aisle, crying, telling her he was so proud of the woman she'd become. And the whole time, he had another daughter, another girl he was proud of. I wasn't special. I was just one of several. Rachel talked about that other daughter, herself. "He used to tell me I was his princess, his only princess. But I wasn't, was I? I was one of 2 princesses, 2 girls who thought their father's love was singular and unique. By the end of the night, we'd cried, laughed, raged, fallen silent more times than I could count. We'd discovered things about Robert we'd never known, good things and bad things, small details and major revelations. And we'd discovered something else, something I hadn't expected. We liked each other. These people, Patricia's children, my children. We were family, dysfunctional, broken, bound together by a man who'd lied to all of us. But family, nonetheless. "We should do this again," Bobby said as we were leaving. "Christmas?" David suggested. "Why not? Dad's not around to object." We started laughing again. That broken laughter, the only kind we had. Christmas it was. 1 year after Robert died, I went to his grave. He's buried in Springfield, in the cemetery behind First Baptist Church. I'd chosen the spot, chosen the headstone, chosen the words that would mark his final resting place. Beloved husband and father, that's what it says. Beloved, what a word. He was beloved by 2 wives, beloved by 4 children who'd grown up thinking they were his only ones, beloved by women across Ohio who'd given him their hearts and gotten nothing in return. I stood at his grave for a long time, watched the wind move through the grass, listened to the birds singing in the trees overhead. I don't know what to say to you, I finally said, out loud, to a dead man who couldn't hear me. I don't know if I should yell at you or thank you or just ask you why you did it, why you couldn't just choose, why you had to have everything and ended up with nothing. The headstone didn't answer. Of course it didn't. Patricia was here yesterday. Did you know that? She drove all the way from Dayton to visit your grave, stood right where I'm standing, probably said something similar. I'd seen her car pulling away as I arrived. We'd waved at each other. These 2 women who shared a dead husband, passing each other at his gravesite. The kids are doing okay, all of them. Bobby's in therapy, Michelle's angry, David and Rachel are processing, but they're okay. They're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay too, eventually, not yet, but eventually, not yet. You didn't break me, Robert. You broke my trust. You broke my understanding of my own life, but you didn't break me. A bird landed on his headstone, sat there for a moment, looking at me. I'm going to keep living. I'm going to find happiness, if I can. I'm going to be a better grandmother, a better mother, a better person than you were a husband. That's my revenge, living well, being happy, despite everything you did. I reached down, touched the cold stone. Goodbye, Robert, whoever you were. I walked away. I didn't look back. It's been 2 years now. 2 years since Robert died. 2 years since I found out the truth. 2 years of rebuilding my life from the wreckage he left behind. I've changed. I'm more careful now, more observant. I notice things I used to ignore, the way people phrase things, the details that don't add up, the little inconsistencies that might mean nothing, or might mean everything. But I'm also more open, more willing to trust the people who've earned my trust. I've let Walter into my life, slowly, carefully. I've let Patricia become my friend. I've let my children and stepchildren, all 4 of them, become a family, messy and complicated and real. Last month I went on a date, not with Walter. He and I are still figuring out what we are to each other. This was someone new, a man from my grief support group, a widower who lost his wife to cancer, who understands loss in a way that Walter doesn't. His name is David, which feels strange because that's also the name of Robert's other son, but I'm learning to live with strange. Strange is my new normal. We had dinner at that Italian place on High Street, the one where Robert and I had our first date, all those years ago. I chose it on purpose. I wanted to reclaim it, to make a new memory there, one that wasn't shadowed by Robert's lies. David was kind, patient. He listened to my story without judgment, shared his own story without self-pity. We laughed about the absurdity of life, about finding ourselves dating in our 60s after decades of marriage, about the strange turns that bring people together. You've been through a lot, he said. I have. But you're still here, still trying. What else is there to do? He smiled. That's the question, isn't it? What else is there to do but keep going? I don't know if David will become anything serious. I don't know if Walter will. I don't know what the next year or the next decade or the rest of my life will look like, but I know one thing. I'm still here, still standing, still open to whatever comes next. Robert Williams tried to build a life on lies. He created 2 families, accumulated millions of dollars, lived 38 years in the shadows. And in the end, he died alone in a kitchen, reaching for something, help maybe, or forgiveness, or just one more chance to keep running. I'm building a life on truth. It's smaller than his was, simpler, but it's real. Every relationship I have now is honest. Every person in my life knows who I am and who they are to me. There are no secrets, no hidden accounts, no parallel lives running alongside this one. That's worth more than any amount of money. That's worth more than anything Robert ever gave me. Sometimes late at night when I can't sleep and the house is too quiet, I think about all the women Robert touched. Not just me and Patricia, not just Jenny in Cleveland or the receptionist in Toledo or any of the others we found. I think about the daughters, Michelle and Rachel, 2 girls raised by the same father, never knowing each other existed. 2 girls who looked for his approval, his attention, his love. 2 girls who thought they were special when really they were just divided. Rachel told me once that her father used to call her every Tuesday evening. Just to check in, she said, just to hear my voice. She thought it was evidence of how much he loved her. Now she knows he had a schedule. Tuesdays for Rachel, Thursdays for Michelle. Everything parceled out like office supplies. I think about the sons, too, Bobby and David. 2 men who both became professionals, both married young, both tried to be the men their father wanted them to be. They've become friends now, these half-brothers. They play golf together sometimes, call each other on birthdays, try to build the relationship their father never let them have. And I think about Thomas, the first son, the abandoned one. He came to the family meeting once, sat quietly in the corner, listening to all of us talk about Robert, watching these strangers who were his siblings. He left me before I was born, Thomas said. The one time he spoke. I used to think that meant I wasn't good enough, that there was something wrong with me, something that made me unlovable. Now I realize it wasn't about me at all. He would have left anyone. That's just who he was. That's just who he was. Maybe that's the closest we'll ever get to understanding Robert Williams. He was a man who couldn't stay, couldn't commit, couldn't choose one life and live it fully. So he split himself into pieces and gave different pieces to different people and called it love. It wasn't love. I know that now. Love doesn't divide. Love doesn't calculate schedules and hide money and maintain separate identities. Love is whole. Love is present. Love is honest. Robert didn't know how to love. Maybe he never learned. Maybe something in his childhood broke that capacity. Maybe it was always missing, like a limb he was born without. I feel sorry for him sometimes. Just a little, because he had everything. 2 families who adored him, children who respected him, enough money to live comfortably for 2 lifetimes, and he never got to enjoy any of it. He was too busy managing, calculating, keeping his world separate. He lived 70 years and never really lived at all. I'm 70 now, too. I've got maybe 10, 15, 20 years left if I'm lucky, and I intend to actually live them, to be present, to be honest, to be whole, to love the people in my life with everything I have, not with whatever's left over after I've divided myself into pieces. That's Robert's final gift to me. The gift of knowing what not to do, the gift of seeing clearly and painfully what a wasted life looks like. I won't waste mine. If you're watching this, if you've listened to an old woman talk about her fake marriage and her lying husband and her shattered trust, I want you to know something. I'm okay. I'm not fine. I don't know if I'll ever be fine. But I'm okay. I have my children, my grandchildren, my health. I have coffee with Patricia once a month and dinner with Walter once a week. I have a house that's paid off and money in the bank and a life that, despite everything, still has joy in it. Robert took a lot from me. 38 years of trust, of innocence, of believing that the person you love is who they say they are. He took that and he destroyed it. But he didn't take everything. He didn't take my ability to love, to hope, to keep going. He didn't take my children, who are complicated and hurt but still mine. He didn't take the good memories, the ones I hold on to even now, the moments that were real even if he wasn't. And he didn't take my voice. I can still tell my story. I can still warn others. I can still say, look closely at the people you love. Ask questions. Pay attention. Trust your gut when it tells you something's wrong. Because somewhere out there, right now, another woman is living the life I lived. Married to a man who seems perfect. Who travels for work. Who calls every night at 9 o'clock. She thinks she knows him. She thinks she understands her life. She doesn't. And she won't. Until the phone call comes. Until the insurance company asks about the other Mrs. Williams. Until her whole world falls apart. I hope that woman is listening. I hope she hears me. And I hope it's not too late for her to find out the truth before it finds her. There's a photograph on my mantle now. It's from our wedding day. Robert and me, young and hopeful, standing on the steps of First Baptist Church. I'm smiling so wide it almost hurts to look at. He's got his arm around me, pulling me close, looking at the camera with those brown eyes. For years that photo meant hope, new beginnings, the start of a beautiful life together. Now it means something else. Now when I look at it, I see a woman who didn't know what she was getting into, and I see a man who already had one foot out the door, one eye on the horizon, one secret life waiting for him just 45 minutes away. I haven't taken the photo down. I'm not sure why. Maybe because despite everything, that moment was real. My happiness was real, even if his wasn't. My love was real, even if his was divided. Or maybe I keep it as a reminder, a warning to myself, to anyone who comes into my home, to the universe at large. This is what trust looks like when it's betrayed. This is what love looks like when it's built on lies. This is what happens when you give your whole heart to someone who only gave you half. Robert Williams was my husband for 38 years. He was also Patricia Williams' husband for 35 of those years. He was also the father who abandoned Jenny Hartley and their son Thomas. He was also the lover who left a trail of broken hearts across Ohio. He was also a real estate investor, a financial schemer, a man with fake IDs and hidden accounts and more secrets than anyone will ever fully uncover. He was all of those people, and none of them. And I'm the widow of a ghost. My name is Barbara Williams. I was married to a ghost. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still alive. And if my story helps even one person, if it makes even one woman look at her marriage and think, wait, something's not right here. If it saves even one person from living a lie for 38 years, then maybe all of this meant something. Thank you for listening. To survivors everywhere, you are not alone. You are stronger than you know. And your story matters. Trust yourself. Question everything. You deserve the truth. You deserve the whole truth. And you deserve a love that doesn't divide itself. I'm Barbara Williams, and I survived.